at the BBC and Radio Luxembourg at the time, and that was in the evening, and that was your luck. But and you only got like really big records if they'd only play them in England if they were a hit in America. So you didn't get any background. 1 minute it's how much is that doggy in the window, and stuff like that, and suddenly one day it was since my baby left me. And yeah, me and about 50,000 million other guys in England suddenly. Where did that come from? Yeah, and they sort of sent us guys that wanted to play, or that got sucked with it like that. You didn't know where it came. It just came out of nowhere. You know, you had no previous warning. You know, there was no sirens went off or nothing. It was boom. Suddenly it was there, and it took us all in England a long time to sort of connect, you know, because afterwards I realized that that music had been around in America for a long time. It was just building up, and it was a particular meeting of different types of music, and also the technology of the time. You know, it was one of those, and the time was right. But in England it was a total bombshell, you know, because there was that 1 minute there wasn't anything, and the next minute there it was, but you couldn't really find it where it came from. It took us a long time to connect how and who did what.
I remember like when I first heard "Hold On, I'm Coming" in Midnight Hour.
Oh, yeah.
It was like I had the idea. It was like 1964, 65.
Yeah, yeah.
But for all I knew, this music had been like around in the South of America for a long time. I thought maybe Midnight Hour, maybe that came out in 45 or something. I didn't know.
Sorry.
What's going on?
There's a lot of hum coming out of the equipment.
Is that amp?
Oh,
Turn it up, man.
We were doing so well.
Yeah. In a minute.
That's it. Mostly the twins. That's it?
All right. Don't give away Heartbreak Hotel. Let me ask you the question. What was the song?
Okay. Do it again.
This must be technology in the room. Something is bound to screw it up, right? Take two.
I'll turn it up. Say it at the end. What was the last thing you said? When you heard it, that's when you...
Had that effect, you know, rock and roll. Did it really shape your life like that?
Yeah.
Because the kids are sitting at home and they're being affected the same way by the songs, and they want to know the same way that, you know,
Right.
build up.
Start again?
We're all set.
Was there a song that did it?
Okay. When did you start playing guitar?
I really don't even know, because my granddad used to put it in my hand when I was that big. I think he had ambitions for me, and for absolutely no reason, because he was a musician but fairly lousy.
Your granddad was a musician?
It was my mother, my maternal.
Yeah.
Grandfather.
Maternal grandfather.
Gus Dupree. He was a musician in the 30s, and he would do it to all of his grandchildren. He probably saw that I was going to be a guitar. I had no idea. He just used to put it in my hands when I was a kid, and
so what was your early repertoire as a kid? I mean, was this?
He tried to teach me Malaguena.
Oh yeah, Spanish guitar.
Yeah. He tried to teach me that stuff, and I could never understand why. I loved it. I always thought the guitar lived on top of the piano in his house.
Yeah.
And, but I only found out a little while ago that in actual fact he used to keep it real stashed away. You know, you bring it out when I came, when he knew I was coming to visit. You know.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. My parents got me into playing the piano immediately, as early as they could. Would sit me down at the piano, get me to play. But it wasn't really until rock and roll hit the radio up in Canada, where I was, that I all of a sudden was galvanized and said, this is what I wanted to do.
Same thing with me.
What was the song that you first heard that made you want to play rock and roll?
It was the first rock and roll record I heard, and I think in England it was, I know what it was for me. I think it's probably the first one they ever played, and it was Heartbreak Hotel.
Heartbreak Hotel.
That was the big one, and that was, boom, 1 minute a desert out there, you know, and the next minute here comes an oasis, you know, and if you were interested in playing, that was the spark. Yeah.
So at that point you heard Heartbreak Hotel, you said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
Play rock
kind
and roll.
of, yeah. And then suddenly, like a month or two later, Lucille, and you started to realize it wasn't just like a one. At first, you thought it was just like a boom, and it was going to, you know, disappear. You didn't really know where it came from or how. In England, you had no idea. I mean, they were. I mean, I'm not knocking anybody. They were just playing Paddy Page or you know, Johnny Ray. It was great actually, but I mean, there was no pre-warning of rock and roll in England. 1 minute it wasn't there, and the next minute it was.
Next minute it's Elvis hitting hard.
Yeah, and suddenly you had, you know, an island full of budding guitar players, or at least wishful thinking, you know.
Yeah, and you, of course, knew how to play. You played a little Malagueña as a kid.
Well, at least I knew how to hold the thing, and I knew
Yeah.
which this hand should do and that. I would hate to say I could play.
So then you worked out Heartbreak Hotel on guitar and used to play, like you started playing rock and roll at that time. How old were you at that time?
It came out about, I was about 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was 13.
You are almost an archivist of this stuff now. You've really gone and done a lot of research.
In England you had to, because you, as I say, it came suddenly out of nowhere, and so you had absolutely no. If you wanted to play it or learn it, you had to find out where it came from, and you had to find out and hear more of it, and so you really had to become a kind of collector. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, people used to hoard them in England, like, you know, I mean, take my money, take my clothes, but please leave my records.
Now, I remember I think it was one night I spent with Chaz Chandler from the Animals. He told me a similar story about how the kids in his area of England all of a sudden latched onto American rock and roll. And then he said they would people would come over to the States and they'd send them orders. Get this record from me, get this record. They'd bring records back to England on a boat, you know, and then these kids would hoard them.
To 2120, to Chess Records in Chicago to get Chuck Berry's
2120 Michigan Avenue.
Yeah,
that was the
South Michigan.
address of Chess Records in Chicago.
Yeah, and Marshall Chess used to mail them to us, and then later on, he was working with us running the Stones label, you know, when it first started, you know. And he was the guy that sent us the records. You know, yeah, but there was no way you could get them, and you had to do, you know, a whole lot of figuring out and digging around in record stores and listening to absolutely everything in order to find out. You knew it didn't come from nowhere. It couldn't. No music comes from suddenly, boom. You know, but in England, it was, as I say, they were like gold. You know, because you only got the big hits. You didn't get any of the other infiltration of the music to understand how it had built up and become a style of music on its own. You know.
You could see right there how these American records would be more important, really, to an English kid than to an American kid, because they're more treasured, more rare, harder to get.
3,000
yeah,
miles.
More authentic.
More than travel, you know.
So it took you English guys to bring them, you know, to really start to appreciate this black music and bring it back over.
I guess because it was so, you know, because it was that much rarer to get hold of there.
Yeah.
That you treasured them more and you wanted to find out more. You couldn't just flip the dial and hit it any time of night, you know, or day even.
Yeah.
You got nothing. If a rock and roll record was a big hit in America, it would probably get released in England. That was for the first couple of years. You know, I mean, Elvis would maybe, and then Buddy and Little Richard. But it took quite a while for us to figure out, you know, that this was not just, it wasn't just one guy doing something in one place, that it was actually the kids in America were actually churning it out. And we wanted to know where, you know, hey, you got an advantage on us. You know, where did you get it from? You know, and that's what we wanted to know. You know.
So I guess kids with similar interests